Welcome everyone to this week in Svelte. Sorry for the late ping for everybody waiting for it on the Discord. By the way, join our Discord. Uh, I actually forgot. Sorry about pinging, but as you can see, we are here. Today will be a pretty short episode, probably because we don't have a community showcase. We will have a discussion. So if you have any ideas, like any Q&A, any like, I would love to see you code these, feel free to drop them in chat, because we will have time probably. So it's fine. Every question, web development, Svelte related, whatever you want. So let's go and let's start with the usual the usual agenda. So let's start with the changelog, which I would love to find the thing, but it's fine. Uh, so let's start with the changelog, what everybody is here for. Let's see if there's something interesting about those changes in Svelte 5, which, by the way, we are basically at, like, I think 134 is the latest release. Yes, 136, 21 years ago, 21 hours ago. So yeah, maintainers are really, really look at this. Okay. Don't warn on writes to state. This, I think, it's something that, like, if you try to write on state when something like this, before it was warning you because you are using a variable inside the same scope where you are declaring it. And this basically means that, like if you are listening to these, so if you, for example, declare a state variable and then you're listening to, like, you're assigning that variable to some other variable, Svelte was warning you because you are referencing the state inside the same scope, and this means that it would have not work, but this was an unnecessary warning, because basically, like, the reason why we want some warning like this is because if I'm trying to do something like let double equal count times 2, like, this is okay to warn because you are referencing the state in its own scope and it will never update because you are not inside an effect. But you need a derived for this. But you can actually do something like this and it will not warn you anymore, which is good because sometimes you need to do it. It's not very common, but yeah, sometimes you need to warn. Provide better error messages in dev. This, I think, it was a general review, which is always good because there are a bunch of new error, like better error about hydration, about let me see if there is any example of the better examples. Yeah, I don't think so. Okay, it's fine. But yeah, we will get better error in dev, which is always good. Ensure, yeah, okay, nothing important. Improved inspect handling of reactive map set and date. This is something that, like, if you have worked with Svelte reactive that expose map set and date, it was always a bit iffy how those were logged, and now it's better, which is good. Handling process effect, optimize effect, ensure effect cleanup function are untracked. Style directive in SSR mode. And this is actually a Svelte 4 release. Like, it's been a while since we had a Svelte 4 release, but yeah, sometimes it happens. Replicate Svelte 4 props update detection in legacy mode. This, I think, it's like if you're updating a prop in Svelte 4, so in legacy mode. This is it's interesting because I think it really shows that maintainers are really committed to make the transition between Svelte 4 and Svelte 5 really seamless. And I've heard about another occurrence where, like, basically there was a huge project on Svelte 4 and they updated to Svelte 5. They didn't touch anything and everything worked fine, which is good because as soon as Svelte 5 become like actually released, you can actually just update to Svelte 5. And then the plan could be to just slowly transition every component. So every time you touch a component, you can move that component to Svelte 5. So the transition between Svelte 4 and Svelte 5 will be very seamless, which is super good considering that it's a whole rewrite. Maintainers really added a bunch of work on their shoulder just so that you can have a seamless transition, which I think is super interesting and not something that other libraries will probably do. Very good in my opinion. Allow for non-optional chain call expression in render. Oh, this is actually a PR that I did. So basically before, what it is, I've lost my point. Okay, so basically inside the render function, like, so the render snippet, basically you could have not do snippet. I'll show you. It's easier to show you than to actually like talk. Basically it was this issue. Yeah, actually let me, it's something like this. So if you did something like this, snippet foo like this was an error for Svelte for some reason, and now it's not anymore. Correctly handle falsy values on style directing in server-side rendering mode. Handling of lazy image elements. This was some problem that basically with Firefox, I think, the lazy attribute was not being recognized. Yeah, so it's interesting. Add backward compatibility for old warning codes in legacy mode, which is interesting again. Use new custom element instead of deprecated init custom element. It's fine. This is also something that I worked on. It's interesting, but now basically you will get an error if a snippet will shadow a prop. So I'll show you. Let's say that you have a component here. Let's call it a.svelte. And let's say that I import a from a.svelte. By the way, it's very cool that now it's suggesting you the name of the file. I don't know who worked on this. I think Rich did, or Dominic, but it's very cool. Well, now inside the REPL, you actually get file autocompletion, which is super cool. So let's say that I have this A, and let's say that I want to pass a snippet to it. So let's say a title prop, and then by doing something wrong, because obviously it will be shadow, I create a snippet called title. This is a problem because the moment this is passed as a prop automatically. So my title, this is passed as a prop automatically, and this this title here will never reach the other part, like the other part of the component. So now you get actually an error compiling. So this snippet is shadowing the prop title with the same name. I think it's interesting. Like someone might think, oh, other error that I have to take care of, but it's fine because you're actually getting a hint of where you need to change your code. Provides state warning for accidental equality, and this is another feature. Like we got a new rune, which is state ease. So basically the problem in general is that, let's say that you have something like these, so state object, like you have a state and you add an object property to that state. Because state is a stateful proxy, like it's a stateful variable in Svelte. This is a proxy. So state.object is not actually equal to object, which is kind of weird, right? Because like I'm just assigning object to these, so I expect object to be equal to state.object. This unfortunately is false because we get a proxy. So actually, this is actually the value is the signal, is not the object itself. And so we now have a new rune, state.is, which allow you to do this sort of stuff. Now, one might say, "Oh, another rune! I don't want another rune." I know, like we have a bunch of runes, but this is something that is super niche, but is not possible outside of, like, without the framework providing you an utility for doing it. And so, yeah, it's good that we have this new rune so that we can actually check for equality in case you actually need it. This is also something that if you never built a library, you probably never experience it, but a lot of people are actually importing from Svelte /internal /something. And while this can be good for libraries that have the need of access some internal part of the state, of Svelte, sorry, it's very risky because if you're accessing Svelte internal, given that internal is not documented, is not public API, they can change that in every release, even a minor release, even a patch release. So if you are using Svelte internal, you can like you need to be very wary when you update your Svelte, when you update your dependency. And so now it's actually erroring out, so that like it should deter more people to use it. So yeah, it's good. And we actually have a question: can't you use state.snapshot instead of state.ease? I don't think you can, because state.snapshot, I think it returns the value, like a new value, but not the same reference. But we can actually check. So we can do this, let obj is equal to this, and then we can do count dot object is equal to this, and then we can do state dot snapshot of count dot obj is equal to obj, and we console log these. Again, I don't think it will be true. Oh, I'm doing something wrong. Is equal to. It's false, because the like state.snapshot return the same values but in a different reference, I think. While if you do state.is, we actually comparing the same value. So in this case, oh, it's always it's still oh yeah. I'm an idiot, sorry. Obj. So in this case, it's true. Let's see if it's actually true with snapshot. It's equal to obj. And it's false. Yeah, it's still. Let's do also these state dot obj. Yeah, it's still false, because again, state.snapshot actually return a new reference to the same values, but while in this case you actually want the same reference because you want to do reference equality, basically. Deduplicate children prop and default slot. Improve SSR invalid element error message. Avoid stated reference locally warning within type annotation. This was also fun. Like, and I saw this bug. It's very funny because basically they were getting an error for like state reference inside a type. So this say, okay, this type is called X number, and they were getting this state reference inside, which is funny. Like, I think it's like, obviously, like it was quickly fixed, but it's a fun bug in my opinion. These are some stuff that are being used by the Svelte inspector that is gaining the ability to work with Svelte 5, or maybe it's even just released. I think it was just already released, but yeah, there's something that the plugin needs, so that's why they are working on that. This is also something very, very interesting. So basically, when you're, let's say that you have something like div and you add an onload element, an onload. Not every element actually has an onload, but I think, I don't remember. But basically, let's say that you have a script tag and you have an onload. That onload will run as soon as the element is like parsed by the browser. And very often this happens before Svelte hydration. And this means that you cannot actually get that load event. And so the way they are fixing this is by replaying these load events. So let's see yeah, if you have a non-load handler for an image or a link or an iframe or script or whatever, it will not fire. And the reason is because, obviously, like as I've said, if you do onload on an iframe, for example, that onload will be processed as soon as the HTML is processed, which is probably before Svelte load, like before the bundle for Svelte load. And so that's like what they are doing is they are recording all those events, like they are keeping track of those events and replaying them, which is super cool in my opinion. More information when iteration fail, which is always good. Migrate Svelte element dis equal div. And this is because there is this breaking change here, disallowing string literal values in Svelte element dis. This is something that if you take a look, like I think Rich did a search on GitHub, and there were like 2 projects using this. But basically, you cannot do this anymore. If you try to do this, which makes sense, like Svelte 5 preview Vercel. If I try to do this, yeah, I don't want to bind. I just want to have the input. You will get this warning, which is this should be an expression. Like, it's silly to write this because you could just write input. Like, if you know that you want an input, why write it with the Svelte element instead of just writing it with the actual input? Svelte element should be used, and if you don't know, it's if you want to change the input. So let's say let's do a quick example if you don't know. So element is equal to input, for example, and we can use these is equal to element. So now it's an input, but the fun part is that, let's say that we have a select bind value to element, and we have a series of options. Option value is equal to input. Option input. Say I want, I don't know, button, or let's say that I want strong, let's say. Actually, text area, just so that we can see. Basically, what these allow you to do is you can change the element dynamically. So you can have input or a button or a text area. So this is useful for components where you want to expose, like to allow the user to choose which wrapper they want. So let's say that I have uh, fancy link, for example. I mean, the link is actually a link, fancy element. What I can do is I can accept a prop. Let, I don't know, element is equal to $sign props. And I can say that I want svelte element as, these is equal to element. And then you can pass my element. I don't know why you would do this, but it's fine. My element, and then you can get import from fancy element, and now you can basically have multiple fancy element with element is equal to input, for example, and you will get an input, or you can do button, and you will get a button, or you can do a text area, and you will get a text area. So yeah, it's very useful, but again, it needs to have a dynamic element to it. So writing it normally, it's a warning for a good reason. Use coarse-grained update for derived expression passed to prop in legacy mode. So this is just for legacy mode, but if you try to update a single value of, I can actually show you the issue that was related, that was actually opened by our good friend. Oh no, it's actually a different. Sorry, it's a different issue. I thought it was different, but yeah, basically, if you see, there is some something like these that was not working in Svelte 5. So yeah, we are really getting down to very edge cases, which is always good in my opinion, because if we are starting to see this kind of bugs, this means that one, people are using Svelte 5, and two, they are finding very like edge case bug. So generally, it should work fine, but also obviously, if you want to help the development of Svelte 5, and maybe you don't feel confident to actually contribute to Svelte 5, which, by the way, you should definitely do it because it's easier than it seems. But if you want to help, just try out Svelte 5 and report issues, and we will get there sooner if you help. We have a couple of comments, like Arsenal Magics is saying Netlify adapter for the latest version is broken. I'll again try. I will raise an issue on the adapter itself, probably with a reproduction. Like, always remember a reproduction, because otherwise it's very difficult to find what your problem is. But feel free to open an issue. And yeah, catching the slide changes from 4 to 5 in compact mode is what you should probably try to do. Because this way, I didn't meant to highlight these very mean comment from Captain Codman. I just wanted to remove the other. So yep, I don't take part in this controversy. So let's move to SvelteKit, which actually got a very exciting release. Because if you ever tried SvelteKit, you know that the first time that you launch the dev server, Vite will actually try to optimize the dependency, and it will reload the page. And what they found out was that like it was doing it a bit too much, so they actually fixed it, which is super cool because it was pretty annoying. Like every time I had to restart the dev server, I got to refresh the page on every navigation, which is pretty annoying. And now actually it's good. Let's move to other. Let's see if there are any other, because I think they're actually working a lot on Vite plugins Svelte. For example, yeah, there is exactly allow infix notation for Svelte modules. So basically, before you had to use a .svelte.js to actually use runes, but now you can actually do the same for .svelte.test.js. This was mainly again for Storybook, for example, or vtest, because to actually use this, you need to uh, like to denote a file as a test file. You actually need to use a .test.js file, and to use rules, you had to use .svelte.js file. So they kind of like interfere with each other, and now they are not anymore, because now you can actually do .svelte.something.js. So yeah, good thing. And I think this is also prebundle file with default file names, .svelte for components, .svelte.js.as for models. So yeah, Svelte migrate. Yeah, that's the changelog. Very interesting as usual. And now we actually we can stop my screen share, and I will come full face at you. And let's see, like category say, once the compat issue are ironed out, should be an easy upgrade, but you may run into breaking issue right now. Yes, like there are obviously, like especially the compatibility layer between Svelte 4 and Svelte 5 is less tested. So because everybody that is using Svelte 5 want to use runes, so it's less tested. It's good that people like Captain Coleman are testing the compatibility also. So they are trying to make Svelte 4 component work in Svelte 5. Again, I've heard news of a lot of projects where you're just upgrading to Svelte 5 and everything works. Some more niche cases might need some intervention from Svelte maintainers, but feel free to try, because again, the sooner we find about those bugs, the better. So yeah. Now, we don't have any announcement, we don't have any Q&A, but we actually have a discussion that was proposed inside Discord. And again, I invite you to go to svelte.dev/chat, because we are talking a lot about a lot of different things. We help people, we discuss about things. So if you have any question, if you have any interesting topic, even if you want to showcase your work, feel free to join our Discord, and it's a very chill place to be in. And one of the discussion that we had on Discord was about ways to allow access to your state for and I stopped presenting my screen, but actually let's go back, because it's easier to show with code. So the thing that we were trying to discuss is the different ways you can pass prop to a children component. So let's say that you have a parent component, and then you have a child component. And we have our app.svelte. So let's say that we have script import child from .child.svelte, and we are rendering child here, and this is child. Let's also add a script tag because we will probably still need it. And then we are importing parent here. Parent.svelte and rendering parent. And actually, let's do this. Parent. Okay. So we have this parent that is rendering a child that is rendering child. Now let's say that I want to give this child needs my count, right? So I want to render this count in a different way inside inside the child. The count is like this, right? I want these to be in sync with these, and I want so every time I click here, it should change here, but it should also change here. How can I pass this information to the child? Well, the easiest way is, okay, I can take a prop. So I can do let count, actually this, it's equal to $props. And then I can pass this count to child, and I can do the same thing in here, and then I can show the count here. So count is count, the count is count, and then obviously I need to pass count to my parent. So now if I click here, as you can see, the child count is in sync with the parent count. This is fine, and it's easy enough for the moment, but as you can see, this required parent to have a prop that will actually only be passed down to the child, which is not super good because maybe like in this case it's pretty easy to follow, but let's see that this parent is it's huge and there are a lot of props and stuff like that. You might get lost and you might say, okay, I don't need count here, and you try to delete it and then you introduce a bug, or maybe, I don't know, it's not a super clean and super good thing to do, basically. So the other option could be to have, instead of using these, you could use the context API. So Svelte allow you to have these in Svelte allow you to have get context and set context. So set context, and what you can do set context, and you need to give it a key. So in this case, I don't know, count, and then you can pass down the count. Now, in theory, I could do this, right? But this will not work for this specific case because count it's actually a primitive. So if I want to pass it to a separate, like if I want to cross boundaries with runes, I actually need to wrap it inside a getter, for example, like this. Or I can wrap it in an object and give it a get count that return count. I need to return it. And a set count, new count that return, that actually set the count to be new count. So once I did this, basically now I have this context, which is in the air. And what I can do is I can remove my child from here, my count from here. So now the parent does not have the concept of count because he does not need it. And so inside my child, instead of accessing by prop, what I can do is I can get the context, and I can do const count. It's equal to get context, and I need to give it the same key. And now I can say count.count, and actually this will be in sync again. And again, in this case, I can also write to it, but if I don't need to write it because I just need to read it, for example, I can remove the setter, or I can even, as I was showing before, I can even just pass, instead of an object, I can pass a function that returns count. And here, obviously, I need to call this function here like this, and this will work. So this is a way to do it. Also, fun thing to do. Like, one thing that it's pretty difficult to get right, and that's something that I always suggest with set context and get context, is that the key is actually like hard coded. So a better way, in my opinion, to do it is to have a separate module. In this case, I don't know, context.js. It doesn't need to be a rune because it's actually a normal JavaScript file, and then you can do get context here and set context, and you can export function set, and you get the value here, and then you can say set context my key and value, and then you can actually use function get, so that basically you are centralizing. Like, this is a small trick that you can use. You can say return get context my key, and you can use my key here, but you can do whatever you want. And what these help you to do is, instead of importing set context from Svelte, you can import from context.js, and you can import set. And now you don't have to specify the key anymore. You can just do this. You need to do set, and here you can actually get these from context, and this is basically the same, but now you have centralized these, so you can even do something like const key is equal to my key, and not actually, you can even use a symbol here if you want. So this works the same, and it's a bit cleaner. And this is also better for TypeScript, for example, because you can actually type those in the same place. Obviously, this is like, you should create one of these for every key that you want to have in your project. But another thing that you can do is, I don't know, you can create a function, create key, like create context, for example, that does this, and then return this set and get function. Get and set. And so that now you can easily like create a new get and set for every new instance of the context that you want to create. Sorry, I am kind of fixated on this thing, but yeah, this basically allow you to have, I want a clean look, sorry. So now I just can create a series of contexts. So I can do, I don't know, const is equal to create context, and I can do, I don't know, get count and set count, and I can export get count and set count, and now I can update my set count. Oh, and I can do this and this, and here I can do get count, and I can do get count. So this works the same. You have these utility functions so that whenever you need to create a new context, you can just copy these and paste it. Like, so I can do get, I don't know, value and set value and stuff like that. And you can export also these. So this is just a way to quickly create a context which is typed, and you don't have to worry about the key. So a quick tip for you. So this is another way to pass the state down to the children. And another way could be create a completely different module, either with a store or with rooms. So in theory, I could create these in a separate thing. So I can create module dot JS. This is in room mode, and now I can basically just copy these. So I can do these, and I can export const. I can do, I can export. Let's do const. I don't know how to call it. But either you can export a function or you can export the actual count and get insert, like get count, which is a function that will return count, and I can export function set count that will set new value for it, or I can export, sorry. So in this case, I'm actually using like a completely separate module, and I can import count from there basically. So I can use like module.svelte.js, and I can import set count and get count. And now what I can do is, instead of doing the set count here, I can do get count to show the count here. I don't even need to pass it anymore to the parent. I wasn't needed before. And then I can do set count is equal to get count plus 1. Obviously, like this is less ideal. And now context, inside my child, I can get count from module.svelte.svelte, and I can just use it like this. What's happening here? Yeah, get count needs to be called, and now everything works. So the difference between these and the other two methods is something that you don't want to overlook, because in this case, this is actually global. So everybody in every component in your application can access this module. So if by any chance you import these in a different file, you might mess with state that are not meant to be messed with. So while with context and prop drilling, you're actually only allowing your child to be able to access your state and modifying. with this, you're actually allowing the whole application to modify your state. And this also has another implication, and it's the fact that if you're doing this on the server, for example, this is actually a singleton. So there will only be one count on the whole server. So if you are updating the state in a script tag, for example, the next request that we'll get will actually get an updated count. So pay attention to this. So let's see if there are any questions. Does using script only inside pluspage.svelte affect performance? Better to use pluspage.js. Pluspage.js is actually a different thing, basically, because the pluspage.js and pluspage.svelte, like pluspage.svelte, is what is get rendered in the end, and pluspage.js should be used to load the data that you need for your page. So it's a different thing. Yeah, I didn't know about get context. I struggled sending 15 variables to the component inside another component. Yeah, I pity you, so I'm sorry for you, but now you know. So you can, the next time you can actually use get context. I love SvelteJS too. Context is for when you have independent trees of components. Yes, but in general, like whenever you start a new context, basically, whenever you start a new context, you are actually allowing the access to that context to all the child of your component, basically. So Stalky says, not necessarily, you can also inject a context at the root to not run into an SSR issue, state share between users. Yes, but what I was saying is that like you still need to use that context in the root. So if you are not using that context in the root and you're accessing that module directly, you will still get a singleton, basically. So not recommended to use state on page layouts, Svelte.js, page layouts. Okay. I think you need to rephrase it because I am kind of lost on what you are asking here. Sorry. So I think that's it. We actually depends on the state. Always depends. Like the answer is always it depends. So we actually got like a 48 minutes. Wow, we are talking so much. So yeah, it was a small episode, but we still got 48 minutes of running time. So I hope you learned something. I hope you enjoyed today. And again, feel free to join our Discord so that we can have this conversation all the week. And have a good weekend and a good week. And I'll see you guys next Friday. Bye.